As of lately, I have realized what I have become, a contradiction of myself and everything that I stand for. I have a very childish and creative mind, and it is for this reason that I have adopted this unreliable approach. Writing my confession, enclosing it in a bottle, and then casting it out to the mercy of the waves. There is a 100-to-1 chance that this confession will be found, and then the details behind an unsolved mystery will be explained. Another trait caused by my contradictory nature is my desire to see my students blossom. Even from the first days of teaching, I knew that I wished to see those around me grow. My garden shares similar parallels with my classroom. Every year, both are filled with those who have matured and have grown into more knowledgeable individuals. Yet this year was different. It was a year filled with students that needed some special care. However, this was the same year that drove everyday life into the depths of a living hell. The students wouldn't pay attention to anything I said, and would act as if school was non-existent, no matter how hard I tried to get them to cooperate. And in this same year, weeds grew like wildfire, and choked the life out of all the plants that were even still alive in my once magnificent garden. What was done in one, happened in the other. I now knew how I should approach removing these weeds from plaguing the future of Equestria. I consider myself an artist, and my mind wasn't satisfied enough with simple murder. No, but murder on a grand scale. To accomplish this, I had decided to begin the next school play earlier than we usually do. The cast, all of those who I deemed as weeds. Applebloom, Scootaloo, and Sweetie Belle. Always pretending to pay attention in class, and yet can never answer anything that is being posed to them, unless it involves crusading for their QT marks, talking to each other endlessly about which activities they should do day after day. Silver Spoon and Diamond Tiara, such brats, thinking themselves as higher-ups, and refuse to allow anything to take higher priority than them, and yet even when it is them, they don't care at all. Snips and Snails, two blundering nincompoops who probably could make it 5 minutes without asking anyone for some form of assistance. Now I had all of my victims. It was time for me to think of ways to remove them without anyone else noticing. The order of the deaths was based on who finished their roles in the plays first. And now to the mechanics of this elaborate scheme. Underneath the stage which we performed at were several soundproof rooms, which with you could basically bang metal together and no one would hear it. And with the commotion on stage, no one would hear a thing. The first victim was Scootaloo. After falling through a trapdoor on stage as usual, she realized that there were no cushions for her fall as there usually were. She lost consciousness the moment she hit the floor. She regained consciousness and found herself locked inside of a cage. Inside were several plates that would crush her and every bone in her body with it. All of Scootaloo's blood flowed into a tub where it would then float outside to where other materials are kept. It was a good thing that she put so much of a fight that it actually made me excited for what was to come. Next was both Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon at the same time. The scene where they finished was a scene with both of them being poisoned and then placed into a cellar where they would die in the play. This, however, was going to be much more realistic and permanent. While they were both unconscious, I placed Diamond into a glass cylinder, and Silver Spoon was stretched out over a table. I decided to break them in the one area that any friend believes in: trust. Their last moment together would be one of betrayal. I told Silver Spoon that if she wanted the pain to stop, she could merely press a button which I placed in front of her. However, this would have a grave consequence. For pushing this button fills Diamond's cylinder with acid. Both suffered immensely. Silver lost her tongue and right eye, and Diamond had been burned badly by the acid in several areas. I removed Silver's body and told Diamond to go to her if she wished. And if she could, I would let them both go. Unfortunately, she made it. I had never seen such willpower in my life before. Fortunately for me, I lied, and I lowered a pipe, similar to the one in Diamond's cylinder, and cut their reunion short. The death of my next victim, Snails, wasn't an end I had entirely planned on. Snails was keeping a light fixture held in place thanks to his magic, but Applebloom on stage pulled a lever which caused the sun to rise and fall. This sudden action from Snail's point of view caused his magic to fail, and the light fixture to fall on top of him. He had survived the initial impact, however the heat from the fixture itself was still emanating and was burning Snails alive. He soon passed away as the fires began to die down. This was a murder by Apple Bloom, not myself, and yet this was a far more entertaining and enjoyable way for him to go. Sweetie Belle was next on the list to be terminated. I decided for Sweetie Belle that I could sit back and watch something else do my dirty work for me. She left her scene by using a trapdoor similar to Cherilee, and just like her fallen comrade, no cushion. She regained consciousness and found herself on a table with a hole behind her lower back. A cylinder was placed behind her. Rats filled the cylinder about halfway full, and I decided to place a fire at the base of the cylinder to give the rats an incentive to get out. The rats began to tear their way through Sweetie Belle in an attempt to escape the flames so they could squeak another day. It took some time, but they eventually broke through, and completely tore through her and everything inside. I was going to remove Snips and Apple Bloom at the same time, but fate decided to have something else for me. Snips had found out that Snails was dead. I had to remove him immediately for my plan to continue. I beat him brutally and took off his horn after a short time. Naturally, I took it and stabbed him straight in the heart. A few more for good measure. There was one scene left, but Snips was supposed to be in it. I needed to improvise. I needed to play his role for the last scene. It was a fight scene between myself and Apple Bloom. I could easily dispose of her right then and there. I sheathed a knife into my costume and went out for the finale. Instead of fighting the scene the way it was supposed to be, I immediately pinned Apple Bloom and stabbed her in the shoulder, pinning her down. I gave a headbutt to her to knock her out unconscious, and by doing so, I improvised that my character had died in the process, ending the play. But now that it was over, I could do whatever I wanted to her in the meantime, since the breakdown would take a lengthy period of time. And with this, I had all the time in the world. For Apple Bloom, I took some knives and began to skin her and took off a few muscles as well for added effect. She refused to scream, but after a while it was too much for her to bear. When I was finished, I took her over to where I had placed Scootaloo's blood and drowned her in the blood of her best friend. Now it was over. I just needed some time to remove the evidence. Sadly, though, I had not thought everything through. Several flammable materials had caught fire while I was away and had begun to spread, and I was trapped. How ironic that the day of freedom is the same day as death. But fate decided to smile on me. Twilight Sparkle blasted a hole by accident in one of the walls, allowing me to escape. The fire had spread into the main building, but I needed a bit more time to destroy the evidence. The fire consumed the building, and the bodies of the fillies and colts that I disposed of were never found. For 2 weeks after the incident, I played the role of the sad, emotionally drained teacher to keep up appearances. And after that period of time, everything ended on a successful note, and my garden was in a fresh state again. But why in the world would I write this? Yes, why? Perhaps I have some wish that someone would find this and realize just how clever I have been. Signed, Cherilee.